This is John Freeman. I want to welcome everybody to the first inaugural membership meeting on Zoom. We actually talked about doing this a year or so ago, about using this technology to actually have membership meetings of an organization that's composed of members. But for a variety of reasons, we never did it. But recently I thought to myself, and I ran it by John, I said, why not? We had an opening on a Thursday, and I thought that, even though we can meet in person, there is a lot to be said about using Zoom for the ease of bringing people together. So this is our first effort at a membership meeting. I did put together an agenda, which I want John to share with us. And then we will proceed through the agenda. And great. So I first of all want to thank everybody for joining us as always. I know many of you join us on Thursday nights, so this isn't new, but I still want to thank all of you anyway. The purpose of these meetings is primarily twofold, though I would throw a third one down, which I'll get to in a second, is first of all to inform our members about various activities that GLREA is working on. I know I send out the weekly, sometimes bi-weekly newsletters, and then John Sarver sends out news blips as well. And then, of course, we have the Great Lakes Energy News once a month. But I still think there's so much we're working on that I think it's important to inform members as much as possible. And then secondly, as we work through these activities, I want to frankly encourage members to participate in various activities. When all of you became members, there's a box which I ask people to check or not to check, which is, would you be interested in volunteering? And many people do in fact check that they are willing to volunteer. And so this is an opportunity for me to share with you some activities we're doing and that members can, in fact, volunteer and get involved with. Because this organization is stronger, even greater as the membership grows and as members participate in various activities. And then the third purpose of these meetings, which isn't listed, though it's at the bottom of the agenda, is that we want to give members an opportunity to ask any questions about any topic or to make suggestions regarding activities that maybe we should be working on that maybe we're not, because there's a wealth of knowledge out there amongst members, and we just want to give members an opportunity to ask questions, have a kind of an open dialogue. And that's currently scheduled later on in the evening, in the agenda, as you'll see. So are there any questions regarding the purpose of these meetings? Pretty straightforward, Okay, well, we'll move on to item number 3 then. These are 3 major activities we're working on. And then, of course, item number 4, legislative work, is another major one, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But I wanted to talk about the 3 activities under number 3. The first one is the Michigan Residential Smart Solar Shopping Guide. I used to get, and I still do every so often, emails and sometimes phone calls from individuals that are interested in getting solar, but don't have a clue about how to go about purchasing or installing solar. And frankly, there are a number of members who support the mission of this organization, but also may not have an actual solar system themselves. So this idea of a smart solar shopping guide is targeted for individuals that are curious and maybe interested in purchasing solar. Up until now, I've put together a couple of single-page documents that I email out to people that, again, call me or email me, and I send those out. But Tom Stanton, a good GLREA member, longtime member, he thought that we should have more of a formalized kind of, for lack of a better word, guidebook or shopping guide that we can email to people, that can be on our website, and that has a little more information than what the 2 pages that I have put together that I send out contains. And so we are in the process of putting together this solar shopping guide. One of our interns, Juliet Knight, has been working with Tom on this guidebook, and we're getting there. We're almost done. We did put together a questionnaire, and we're going to ask members and non-members a series of questions in case there's items that should go in the guidebook that we just haven't thought of. But in the guidebook, we have information about the benefits of solar. We talk about some of the financial angles of solar, the investment tax credit, whether it's advantageous to get batteries or not. And then we talk about what is the process from which a solar installer generally, how they approach when they get a client who's interested in getting solar, how they need to get the most recent month's utility bill. Then they extrapolate how much energy they use over the course of the past year. And then they size up the system and give a rough estimate. And then they'll come out and do a visual inspection. And there's also a glossary of terms in the guidebook so that people can learn the terminology that's commonly used. A lot of times terminology can be baffling and confusing to people, and we want to educate people as much as possible, because the more people are educated, then the more they'll feel confident in making their decision. So that's item number 1 that we've been working on, that we're excited about. And again, we're almost there. And as soon as it's complete, I will be sharing it with the entire membership, and it will go on our website. Any questions about that or comments? Okay. Solarize program. We've talked about this previously, but we constantly want to remind members about this program. GLREA has been working on the so-called Solarize program for basically the last 2 years. This is something that started with Ann Arbor, where Julie Roth started to bring together people in neighborhoods or in sometimes networks of friends or colleagues that individuals have in Ann Arbor. And they would pull together a meeting, and then one person would explain the benefits of solar and why it might make sense to get solar. And then we also have a solar installer attend the meeting to explain, again, the process from the point of view of a solar business installer, how do they go about estimating what the system is, how big a system is, how much it will cost. And so we are trying to, again, educate individuals in the public about solar so we can encourage more people to get solar. And then, of course, coming out of these meetings, if 3 or more people decide to get solar, and then the solar installer will give a discount on the cost it will to the buyer for installing the solar system. So if 3 people decide to get solar, they get a 5% discount. If 5 decide to get solar, they get a 10% discount. And then if 7 or more decide to get solar, then they can get a 15% discount. So the combination of the investment tax credit, which is a 30% reduction in the real cost of a system, and then if you tack on a 5 to 15% discount, then this will bring down the cost of installing solar pretty significantly. And that might just be what's needed for people to take the plunge to get solar. And so we are trying to promote this program throughout the state of Michigan in different communities. Megan Husted, one of our staff, she couldn't be on the call tonight, but she is the lead organizer for this program. And we are looking for people who want to be hosts or organizers in various communities. And what we're looking for is someone who is willing to host a meeting. It can either be in person or it can be on Zoom, where that person is willing to invite their neighbors, their friends, Facebook friends, people from a house of worship or church, professional friends, whatever it might be, to invite people who might be interested in getting solar. And so we're looking for people who are willing to kind of step up and bring people together. And then, of course, myself and Megan, we will provide total support, and John Sarver for that matter, in terms of marketing and publicizing these solarized meetings. We will help find a solar installer who is willing to provide the solarized discount if they get 3 or more new clients. So we'll provide a lot of support for the solarized program. The key thing we need, again, is individuals who are willing to tap into their network of friends to pull people together. And we tend to try and get 40 people who are willing to come to a meeting. So 40 people that are relatively firm asks. 40 people won't show up. Maybe 30 will. But if we only get 30 people who are committed to coming, then maybe only 20 will show. So we're trying to target 40 pretty firm yeses for people to come to a meeting. And again, so if you're interested in maybe being a host, let me know, or send me an email, or send John Sarver an email. I know a number of people on this call have done it. John GLREA did it. I think he's on the call, and there may be a few others that have done it, but it's not that hard. And again, it's a way of tapping into your network and educating people about the benefits of solar and how they can get a discount for installing solar. So if you're remotely interested, think about it and let me know. Any questions or comments on that? And by the way, we have a lot of paper on this. We have a 2-page memo, a 4-page memo, and then we have a whole model that we can send you if you just want to learn more about the program. So even if you don't want to commit yourself, but you still want to learn about it, that's fine. Just send me an email and we'll send you some of the memos, and then you can decide whether it makes sense for you to become a host for one of these solarized meetings. Any questions or comments on that?
Yes. Hi, John. My name is Max Thornburg. I'm new to this meeting. Thanks for letting me interrupt you here. With
Sure.
Novaterra Energy here in Lansing. Been doing solar since 2014. I still have a few non-gray hairs in my head left, so I consider that a successful career in this business, as I define it. But thank you so much for having me here. I wanted to ask you if there was an application form for these solarized events, because I know you're looking for a firm to meet like a specific set of criterion. Is there something like we can fill out so like we can get on board with one of these?
There's not like a form to fill out, Max, but just send me an email and talk about your company a little bit. My email is the letter J, Freeman, Freeman 13, that's 13 at Comcast.net. So just send me an email, expressing your interest in participating in it, and then we'll get you plugged in, and we'll send you some information and talk to you about it and get you up to speed.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate your indulging the interruption here.
No, not at all. That's the whole point of these meetings, is to talk about different programs we're doing, and we want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask questions or get clarifying information. That's perfectly fine.
John, it's Marcia asking a question. Just quickly,
sure.
How does this fit into the cap situation in Michigan?
Well, that's a great segue, Marcia, because that's the next topic we're going to talk about. Oh. And I'm going to let John Richter talk about it, but we've had some very good news about the cap regarding DTE. And then I'm going to ask John, as he makes his comment, to talk about consumers as well, because consumers did something pretty nice as well last fall. But so just hold on to that thought, Marcia. And item number C is about our regulatory work with the Michigan Public Service Commission. And there are two major projects that GLREA has been working on the last few months. The first one is, we intervene in various rate cases in front of the Public Service Commission, where we try and promote good regulatory policies that support the expansion of solar in Michigan. And just as a constant reminder, the Public Service Commission's role is to regulate and oversee the decisions made by the major utilities in Michigan. And the reason for that is that the major utilities in Michigan are given a monopoly in terms of their operation within a certain geographical areas of the state of Michigan. So as a result of not having pure competition on the open market, like most businesses do, 100 years ago, the state of Michigan created, at that point, it was called the Railroad Commission, and it was empowered to make sure that utilities, or in 100 years ago, the railroads, they weren't abusing their monopoly authority or their monopoly of power in terms of establishing rates. So we work with the Michigan Public Service Commission on various rate cases regarding DTE and consumers and everybody else. And so there are two cases that we've been working on. Or one is a case and another is a development. The DTE settlement, which I'll ask John to speak in a second, and then time of use and time of day rates that Dale Klein has been taking the lead on. And as you can tell from the agenda, John is going to present on a specific solar stories on August 10th. And then Dale is going to do a repeat performance on time of use rates on August 31st, because there still are lots of questions. But why don't I turn it over to John right now to explain about the DTE settlement and specifically about the cap. So John, you can answer Marcia's question as well as inform the other members that are on this call.
Sure. So as John was saying, we've intervened in a number of cases, and one of the issues that is always coming up is distributed generation. The utilities have tried relentlessly to reduce the compensation for it. And then we've got this cap. Now, the cap on participation in that program is really a leftover from the days of net metering. But unfortunately, when they repealed net metering and created the DG program, the legislature did not eliminate the cap. Now, one of our challenges is the Public Service Commission cannot force a utility to increase their cap or to continue compensating customers under the DG program once they've hit their cap, new customers. But the utilities have the right to voluntarily increase that limit. So we have successfully negotiated that limit up in the course of settlement discussions with the utilities. As John was saying back a bit ago, Consumers Energy increased their cap from 1% of their peak load to 4%. And then in a settlement we just signed with DTE Energy, they're going to increase their cap to 6%.
So
of their Michigan. The real hope here is we can get the legislature to pass the bill that eliminates the cap altogether.
So going back to Marcia's comment is the fact that if the Solarized program does end up resulting in lots more customers for our solar business members within GLREA, there's now plenty of cap space available for the next several years in order for new small-scale solar systems to be connected to the grid and for those owners to be compensated at the current distributed generation outflow rate, which is about 8 or 9 cents per kilowatt hour. It's about 50% of the retail rate. So, Marcia, we're very confident that that people will have a nice smooth path for new people to get solar and for new solar customers. So we can do that. Are there any follow-up questions with John? and again, we're going to have a specific solar story on this, because there's a lot within the DTE settlement agreement that we want to share with all of you, more than just a cap, but the cap is certainly probably the top priority for GLREA in the negotiations that we engaged in with DTE.
Yes.
But are there any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, because obviously this is a really big deal, and the connection was not really super great along the way there. Sorry, John, for me. So the cap is going to go from 4% to 6%, right? For distributed
DTE, because the cap applies to each utility separately. So for DTE, it's going from 1% to 6%. For consumers energy, it's already gone from 1% to 4%.
Okay. And then when does that happen?
Well, so for consumers, it's already happened. For DTE, it'll occur once the commission approves the settlement agreement. DTE has pledged to continue connecting people until the end of the year anyway, actually in another case. So it'll happen before that.
Oh, did somebody actually have to sue DTE for permission to get PTO?
Well, it's bigger than that, right? They're approving the entire settlement agreement, which has a whole bunch of different things that it does, right? However, none of the interveners actually objected to the settlement agreement, so the likelihood of the commission approving it is extremely high.
And the commission has a meeting, I think, in a few weeks, either in July or early August, and we think the commission will approve the settlement agreement there, in which case it takes effect immediately. So yeah, the statutory cap is 1%. That was established by the legislature back in 2008. And DTE is the biggest utility in the state. So it took from 2008 to right about now for it to hit the 1% cap, though technically it hasn't quite hit it yet. It took a couple of years ago, consumers hit cap. We were able to get them to raise it from 1% to 2%. And then in another negotiated settlement with consumers last fall, we agreed to support some items that they needed in return for them to agreeing to raise the cap from 2 to 4%. Same process in this DTE settlement. There are things that DTE really wanted that they sought GLREA support for. And so we said, fine, we will support you, but you need to support us and what our members need, which is raising the cap from 1% to 6%. So this is going to provide a lot of room for Max and for Absolute Solar and Harvest and Diane Van Buren to sell solar panels to many companies now. They're installing small-scale solar systems. So go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to thank there for mentioning the fact that the cap itself, I think this kind of gets lost in the complication of all this, was only ever there for net metering. That I studied this in law school, and so I'm pretty familiar with how this all kind of took place and how we got here. And so that, I think it's just important to keep that in mind, that this cap is addressing something that hasn't existed for years. So the fact that the utilities can now use that as leverage to get other things they want is frustrating, because it should not be there now. Distributed generation is in place, so there should be no cap. That's the point of the cap. So I just think it's important that we keep that in mind, and that's one of the times I've heard that mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there and clear for everyone.
Well, we're going to talk about, Rob, the fact that there is legislative initiative under item number 4, when you can see down below, eliminate the 1% cap. So we're going to talk about that in a couple
Bill, I'm excited to talk about that one. Yeah.
Great. Go ahead, David, and then we'll call on David. Well, the two Davids. Go ahead, David Girk.
Okay, thanks. Could you give a quick primer on exactly how the cap operates? Precisely what does a 1% cap versus a 2 or a 4% cap mean?
Right. So it's a cap on the total kilowatt kilowatts of system that can be connected under the distributed generation tariff, right? So they add up the capacity of all the customers that have signed up, and then it's 1% of the utilities peak summer capacity. So basically the capacity of all their power plants put together. So that the customers could amount to 1% of the generating capacity of that service territory, or now 4% or 6%. It's really a very strange number and a little misleading because people think it means like 1% of all the energy is being generated by the DG customers. It's much, much less energy than that, but 1% of the capacity.
Capacity. Okay. Have we run into cases where people wanted to install more and they couldn't because we were up to the cap?
That
Yes.
happened, yeah, in two territories. UPCO, I think, first hit their cap, stopped taking applications. Eventually, they got a negotiated increase. And Indiana Michigan Power right now has hit the cap and is refusing applications. And there's an open case for comments on that. So the battle goes on, you know?
Gotcha.
And actually, there was a third case 2 years ago when consumers hit the 1% cap. It took place in like October, and they just, bam, they just stopped connecting people to the grid. And it took from mid-October until January 1st when they agreed to raise the cap to 2%, as long as the Public Service Commission gave them the same distributed generation outflow tariff that DTE had received already. So, and the Public Service Commission did grant consumers the exact same outflow tariff. So then consumers agreed to raise the cap to 2%. But because consumers and UPCO, both of those companies hit the cap much earlier than DTE.
John, it seems to me that there was something when we established our system with consumers that they had to know whether we had electric water heaters, how much we plugged in, how much we used electricity. I mean, they didn't want us to generate more from our solar panels than we were using.
That's a different
and is that still something that's going on, which doesn't seem to be smart to me?
Yes. So that's also limitation in the statute that you're not to size your system such that you would generate more energy than you use over the course of a year. Normally, they'll base that on your past 12 months of consumption, although you can try and get a waiver on that if you can show your consumption's going up because you say just bought an electric car or something like that.
Well, I did. I had a golf cart and an electric car. That helped. But yeah. Right.
Dave Curtis, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wondered if you could comment on the, I don't want to say attitude, but that might be the best word, the attitude or the cooperation and understanding of the MPSC when you're in these meetings.
Wow,
John, you want to take a crack at that?
That's complicated.
I guess I know there's 3 members and 2 of them are Democrats and 1 is a Republican. Are they constantly voting on along party lines, or do they, engage with you and understand the whys?
Yeah, so we don't actually talk to the commissioners. The whole kind of battle plays out between the interveners, the company, and staff. All this stuff gets written up, and then the commission makes a ruling. They issue an order, and they go through all the different issues in the case, and decide on something, generally something somebody recommended, right? Which might be us or some other intervener, or they might go with the company. So it's not really clear what they're thinking. A lot of they'll issue an order and they'll make a decision, but you don't really understand the thinking behind it. Whereas staff we have a lot of discussion with, and there's a lot of back and forth, and we see their reasoning. But staffs a whole bunch of people and they don't all have the same opinions either. So
I got you.
rather complicated.
Yeah. So they could be playing poker and going, yeah, let's give them that one. I got
But
you.
the thing but a couple items to keep in mind is that the governor is the person that nominates the three commissioners. So we have, well, we just recently got the third commissioner appointed, Alexandra Carena. But Dan Scripps and Kathleen Paratek are the other two public service commissioners, and they have a background in renewable energy. So they have their values are fairly supportive of expanding renewable energy in Michigan. The challenge is, as John indicated a few minutes ago, is that the commission can only operate given the authority they're granted by state law. So state law established the 1% cap, but that same law did not empower the commission to unilaterally raise that cap. So we need to change state law in order to eliminate the cap, or, as we're going to talk about in a few minutes, we want to give the Public Service Commission more authority by passing new legislation where the commission can take into consideration climate change, equity issues, and environmental justice issues as a part of their decision-making authority when they review these cases. Dennis, you got the floor, sir.
Thank you. Don't the utility companies have some type of requirement, or they say they're going to reach a certain percentage of renewable energy by a certain date? I live in Holland, and they just reported that they have 15% of their electricity from renewable energy, and they're working on more. The trouble is we've got more companies moving in, and that's their percentage is going to stay about the same, even though they've got more solar farms that they're working with and stuff like that. Do the rooftop solar panels add to the help out the utility reaching that goal, or do they just not even consider it? It doesn't, huh?
Yeah, so the legal requirement is 15%. That's the renewable portfolio standard established by the legislature. John's going to talk about a bill that might increase that. The utilities also, in addition to that, have to provide green power for customers that request it. So you've had big deals with Ford Motor Company and some of the other companies to buy green power from the utility. That's additional green power they have to generate, as well as individuals like us. You can sign up for the My Green Power program, which right now actually saves you money instead of charging you extra to get green power from DTE or consumers. So all of that is additive, but their plans in the renewable portfolio, or in their RPSs, that their plans for the next 15 years is a whole lot more additional solar and wind capacity than any sort of load growth or anything like that's going to account for. So the percentage of renewables will definitely be going up.
Yeah, just to give you a little more specificity, Dennis, that in 2016, the legislature raised the renewable portfolio standard from 10% to 15%, and the utilities had until 2021 to achieve that 15%. And in fact, all the regulated utilities in Michigan did in fact achieve that higher percentage of renewable energy. But just like John said just a second ago, now the utilities have voluntarily gone beyond that 15% because, in fact, solar and wind is so much less expensive than coal and nuclear power, and for that matter, natural gas, that its economics is now driving the utilities to incorporate more and more solar and wind and to close down the coal plants because of all the environmental costs of having disposed of all the the ash that is the remaining byproduct of burning coal, and then of course all the health concerns. But that is also a part of the settlement agreement that GLREA signed off on that John is going to talk about on August 10th. So everybody, please come back to August 10th, and John will go into a lot more detail about all the various aspects of the settlement agreement, because it's all rather fascinating. And the key thing that I want you all to walk away with is not only in addition to the fact that we did get the cap raised from 1% to 6%, but also the fact that GLREA intervenes in these cases on a regular basis, and we're there to represent all of you and to promote the organization's mission of promoting renewable energy and developing a policy framework that supports the expansion of renewable energy in Michigan. Okay, I want to move on, though, because we only have about 25 minutes left, and I want Dale to say a couple words about time of use rates and how he'll be presenting on August 31st. And then we'll talk about legislative stuff. Dale, can you say a few words?
Yeah, so if you have if anybody has questions about switching between the different rates or comparing them, you can email me, or if you email John, he'll forward it on to me. Basically, the rates that both the utilities over the past year or two have switched to time of day rates. And the reason for that is because over the long term and in a bigger picture, that's going to reduce peak loads on the grid. That is going to reduce the need for utilities to build more generation capacity, which is what allows them to charge us more. So even though a lot of people may think that the utility is just pulling another fast one, trying to raise rates for no good reason, time of day rates properly done can save you money if you use rates that are lower overnight and if you limit your use on peak, especially if you have solar. That can be a big advantage. But what the utilities have done is made the default rate be not so much different than the old flat rate, and definitely not any lower cost overnight. So they're charging you more for a couple hours in the afternoon and charging about the same for the other hours. So it's worth comparing the different rates if you haven't already. And if you have solar, most likely the default rate that they have put you on is not the one you want. So that's the short version of it.
Sounds great. And Dale put together about a 12-page memo that we can send people who are interested, that goes into a lot more detail about the time of use and time of day rates, and explains some of his recommendations. So if anyone's interested in getting that, just email myself or email Dale. And then, of course, Dale will do a thing. So thanks, Dale. So let's turn, a big part of the mission of GLREA is to policy framework that will support the expansion. Has been around for 31 years. And long before I got involved, this organization was involved back in 2008 with Public Act 295. We got involved with the upgrade in the state energy laws in 2016. And we have been involved in the legislative process ever since then in trying to, again, enact new policies that will support the expansion of solar in Michigan. And we have been hitting our heads against the wall for the last few years, but now that Governor Whitmer is the governor, and she has her Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, which is all about transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy in order to decrease the amount of carbon pollution, which of course promotes climate change. So now if she wants her plan to become real, then we need to enact new policies in Michigan that will further the transition from fossil fuels to renewables. So these are the five areas that we need to educate legislators on so that we can hopefully count on their support when these bills are up for a vote. We've been working, and I've been talking about this in the weekly newsletters for a while now, about community solar, because there are many people who live in apartments or condominiums or whose house may not be suitable for solar, or maybe people can't afford the full upfront cost of installing a solar system. By having community solar, where a third-party developer could build a solar array in some, community, big open piece of land, and then individuals can either buy or subscribe to those panels, and the value of the energy those panels will be then credited back through your utility bill back to where you live. Now, many states, I think it's 22 states, have this policy and law, but Michigan is not one of them. So we need to enact this policy so everybody can, if they want to, purchase solar energy, they can. And there'll be no more barriers that prevent that from happening. The two bills that are listed are in the Senate. Ed McBroom is a Republican from the UP. Jeff Irwin, of course, is a Democrat from Ann Arbor. And then Rachel Hood is in the House. She's from Grand Rapids, and she has the House bill to establish community solar. So we think that these bills are going to be taken up this coming fall. So that's why we want to do some education work from now until the fall about these bills. As we talked about a few minutes ago, eliminating the 1% cap. Once again, Jeff Irwin, the Democrat from Ann Arbor, he has a bill to eliminate the cap altogether and require the Public Service Commission to rethink the outflow tariff, which right now is about 50% of the retail rate. Many of us argue that that doesn't truly represent the true value of the solar energy that solar owners export back to the grid. So we think that, and Jeff Irwin has in his bill, requiring the Public Service Commission to do a fair value of solar analysis to determine what the true value is of the energy that goes back to DTE and consumers. Because the irony is that even though DTE and consumers only gives a credit of about half the retail rate, DTE takes that energy that solar installers export back to the grid, they turn right around and sell it to your neighbor for the full retail rate. So they're making money off of your equipment, and we just don't think that's fair. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, John. Yeah, no, that is one of the more ironic, frustrating parts. And oftentimes they'll actually sell it at above retail by having people sign up for like green energy, right? So they did not create the power, and then are able to basically turn around and sell it at a premium. It's cake and eat it too, beyond what you could imagine. So, but I did just, there's a couple things I wanted to hit on about Senate Bill 362, which I definitely, if the underlying goal is to increase the adoption of renewable solar energy, then by far and away, what's going to make the biggest impact is increasing the value of excess generation. And I know this bill essentially, is asking for that reevaluation, ideally net metering. And so I think it's just really important to keep in mind that, there's a lot of great things that, for instance, community solar that can help increase that. But if we're looking for quality installation companies to survive and grow in the state and for widespread adoption to happen rapidly, then increasing value and getting close to net metering as possible is absolutely the most beneficial thing. And modified net metering or something like that is definitely something that is fair. Obviously, pure net metering, like many states have, is ideal. But there's just a couple things I want to make sure we keep in mind about this bill. So first of all, there's been a trend on bills of devaluing excess generation credits by moving the cost of the bill off of the actual energy charge and more towards distribution. You can then not apply your excess credit to anything distribution. So they're systematically devaluing what is already an abysmally low credit rate. That is happening across the board. And if we allow a bill to move forward that does not address that, they may smile and not push back and then turn around and just call it distribution fees as opposed to energy charges based on kilowatt hours, and then just devalue it, through that mechanism, right? And so basically making the bill pointless, and we're back to where we started. So it's really important we understand that when we say what is the value of that power, it has to be applied to the cost of the bill, not only to energy charges, because they're just moving costs off of energy charges and moving it to distribution and calling it something different, even though it's still based on the kilowatt hour. So that's really important we get ahead of that. The other thing is that I'm very concerned about, that if they start forcing solar applicants to pay for transformer upgrades, even Cat 1 applicants, then we're very quickly going to run into a situation where you're forcing individuals to pay for transformer upgrades that are absolutely needed in the near future, that they themselves will own, and use that equipment to then create more revenue and profit by charging your neighbors more and more as EVs get adopted. And then that individual is straddled with that bill by themselves. And the worst part about that too is you can't even prepare for this. So you won't know if you need to pay for this until you apply for interconnection. So where does that leave a solar installation company? They can either be upfront and open with a potential client of this unknown large future cost that may or may not be required. That's going to de-incentivize people moving forward, and it's going to make solar contractors, it's going to be very difficult for projects to get signed at all. Or you can take the route that others might take, which is just to hide the ball from clients, not tell them that this cost is coming, which is incredibly immoral, and not the way forward either. So, I mean, if these things aren't addressed in this window in which we have to address them, we're going to set back this industry significantly for the foreseeable future. And so
we're well aware of, Rob, we're well aware of the energy to distributed generation shift. Rob Rafson of Chart House Energy is talking about this in the current rate case with Consumers Energy.
Great. Excellent.
The transformer stuff that's a new one, and we'll look into it. And I'll talk to Jeff Irwin to see if we can get him aware of it and try and put an end to that type of thing.
Okay.
But thanks for the comments, really helpful stuff. So real quickly, some of the other bills, Senate Bill 271 would raise the renewable portfolio standard up to 60% by 2030, I think it is. And then 100% by 2035, which is very ambitious. And then there's a bill to enhance the powers of the Michigan Public Service Commission so that they can take into consideration climate change, affordability of the rates for low and moderate income people, because the rates are getting so high by the utilities that a lot of low income people are spending an inordinate amount of their monthly income on their monthly energy bills, which makes it really stressful on the financial wherewithal for the families. And then equity issues as well. So those are statutory enhanced powers that we want to give to the Michigan Public Service Commission, which we think will help them be able to make more effective and more quality decision as they're evaluating various rate cases proposals, or for that matter, integrated resource proposals by the utilities. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, John. I just want to point out that there's apparently a typographical error in your slide that maybe you can correct right away. You've got the same bill number for Sue Shink and Sam Singh. The one for Sue Sink is the correct one. So Sam Singh's has got to have a different number.
Yeah, Sam has got to be 273 then.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's 273. Yeah. Thanks. It's a good one. Thanks, John. Okay. And then, as I said a second ago, Sam Singh's bill, Senate Bill 273, that is to increase energy efficiency. Right now, the utilities are incentivized to hit 1% of their energy load for energy efficiency purposes. And we want to bump that up to 2%, because the greenest energy is energy that's not even used, and energy efficiency along with solar is a perfect combination. And so we want to support that bill as well. So these are the 5 kind of buckets, policy buckets, that GLREA is focusing on for our work. And then under item number B, these are the various activities that we're looking to do over the next couple of months to educate legislators about these bills. Because legislators who don't have an energy background, they don't really have any information about what all this means, and frankly need to educate legislators about these bills. And so, GLREA members are some of the best agents, so to speak, that can help educate legislators. And so we want to encourage GLREA members to attend legislator events. Legislators have coffee hours pretty regularly. We want to encourage all of you to go to these coffee hours and these events. We will send you flyers and information about these bills that you can then share with the legislator and that you yourself can become more educated upon. There might be community events where you live where you can pass out flyers to people that might be interested in energy issues, and that you could then encourage them to contact their legislator to send them the flyer and the information. Letters to the editor. That's incredibly powerful tool, because a lot of people read their local newspaper, and a lot of people read the letters to the editor that always appear in local newspapers. And so we want to encourage members to write a letter to the editor or an op-ed to talk about these policies and why we hope that the legislature will enact them to support a more stronger renewable energy policy framework. And then finally, on September 26th, there's going to be a very large legislative day of action in Lansing. GLREA is working in coalition with a number of other organizations for a number of years. And so this is going to be a big rally in Lansing on September 26th. The coalition have reserved the lawn in front of the Capitol. There's going to be tents, music, food, speakers, and legislators are going to be invited. And so we want to encourage GLREA members that want to come to Lansing for the day to participate. It won't cost you anything outside of just maybe gas or electrical charge in your electric vehicle, to get to Lansing. But this will be an incredibly fun day, a chance to mingle with legislators, to talk about these bills, and to encourage them to support them. And I'll be sending out more information about this legislative day of action. But in terms of these very willing to do these, let me know. I will start sending you information and flyers and information about these various policies. I can send you information how to write a letter to the editor, and I can just work with you if you're willing to volunteer on these efforts. So just keep me posted and let me know. So we only have a few minutes left for our hour, 5 minutes left. And I'm sorry, maybe this agenda was too busy for the full hour, but I do want to open it up. I do want to open up on item number 5 for any of you to bring up any topic that you want to bring up that we haven't talked about. So go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, we have a question. We're interested in exploring geothermal on our property. We have 3 acres. And so we're wondering, do you have a list of geothermal installers?
Well, we have a board member, Alan Waller, who is with Water Furnace, Water, F-U-R-N-A-C-E. It is a top drawer geothermal business in Michigan and other states around the country. Alan is based out of Paw Paw, Michigan, Southwest Michigan, but he's a terrific guy. I can send you his email and his phone number. You can get in touch with him. One thing we recently did is I worked with John Sarver to set up a new Facebook page, just like the Michigan Solar Users Network. We set it up for geothermal. So now people interested in geothermal can start talking to each other, learning about it. It's called Michigan Net. Is that right, John? Is that what we're calling it?
Well, it's MyGen, Michigan Geothermal Energy Network.
That's right. That's right.
So if you Google MyGen, you'll probably be able to find it.
Sound good, Phil?
Yeah, if you could send me that.
And I'll get you Alan's address, and you can go from there.
Right. I have one other question, if I could take your time.
Sure. Go ahead.
So early May, my wife called DTE and requested we go from net metering to what's it, D1, D12, and we have yet to see a billing statement that shows anything other than net metering. And I'm wondering, is that normal, or does it normally take like 3 or 4 months for the bills to reflect a change in the status? Our bills keep showing net metering category 1.
Dale, do you have any thought about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer your questions. If you could email me, Phil, I could think more about it. If your bill is goofed up since you switched rates, you wouldn't be the only one. A lot of people have had that happen. If that's what you were saying, I wasn't quite following.
Yeah, well, we're just wondering. We've had some adjustments on our bill, like some credits and applied, but we've had like 3 statements since we called in early May, and it's still each one. They all say net metering category 1 on them. So,
well, if you were installed before 2019 May, I think it was, then you're still net metered for 10 years from that point. But they will still change you to the different tariff, which would be, by default, they'll put you on the one called time of day 3 to 7. But that's not the best choice. Email me, and I'd be happy to look at your bill with you and explain it. And
Dale, what's your email address, Dale?
I put it in the chat earlier before, and it's DALKLEIN at Gmail.
Right, I got it. All right, thank you. That's it for me.
You're welcome. Heather, you got the floor.
Thanks. This has been really interesting. I was wondering if GLREA has thought about asking for uniform state codes on the siting of renewable energy, especially utility scale. BWL here is talking about doing some major wind and solar, but they're also talking about how hard it is to site wind. And there's been a lot in growing, community oppositions. Some communities have moratoriums on large scale solar and wind projects. And I just didn't know if that was one of the things that GLREA was thinking about weighing in on, what kind of cold might be there.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. A year or so ago, Professor Sarah Mills at the Graham Institute at University of Michigan, she got a grant to put together a guidebook for local units of government regarding zoning laws for siting utility scale solar, farms, installations, whatever. John Sarver and I had a chance to review it. We made some comments. And so Sarah Mills, literally MILLS, Sarah, SARAH, she is like the resident expert in Michigan regarding, helping local units of government come up with a proper zoning for supporting utility scale. Now, you're right. There is a lot of backlash and a lot of pushback on siting of wind turbine farms and solar farms. Our colleague, a GLREA member, Ed Rivet, who is with the Michigan Conservative Energy Forum, his organization works to push back on these anti-solar, anti-wind people, a lot of times who are not even from Michigan. They're paid troublemakers who go around to the local rural parts of the state, stirring up trouble. So Ed Rivet is someone that can help push back on this. And there's also talk about having a legislative bill to change the siting rules for the placement of utility scale solar and wind projects. We have not been intimately involved with this. We have a partner organization, Michigan EIBC, our friend Laura Sherman. She has been taking the lead on the siting bill, along with Douglas Jester of Five Lakes Energy. And so, I'm smart enough to let other smart people handle challenging issues. So if you want to learn more about the siting bill, as soon as it's fully fleshed out and developed, we will no doubt want to be supportive of it. And then I can send out to the membership a draft of the bill. But right now, it's still in discussion stage. And so we'll get back to you on that. Final question from Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. I apologize. I had for a little bit. Can you tell me where I can get the recording of this meeting?
Yeah, all the sessions that we do on Thursday evening are posted at our YouTube channel, which is the GLREA YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube, you can just basically search for either Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association and GLREA. We have a number of playlists there to kind of help people find different topics. But the most recent recordings will be kind of right there when you first get to our channel. So all these sessions are, with very few exceptions, all these sessions are recorded and posted on YouTube.
Thank you.
And David, if for some reason you can't find it, just send John or myself an email that we can send you the link.
Thank you. On the Solarize meetings, where if people sign up, they can get a discount for their solar.
Yes.
Just before this meeting, I got an email. It sounds like there's going to be 2 of those Solarize meetings in Lansing next week.
Well, John Sarb can help you with that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, there is going to be one in Lansing, I believe on July 26th, 7 p.m.
Yes,
at the Foster Community Center.
My question is, sign up for a solar project on my home tomorrow. Would it be beneficial for me to wait and go to that meeting and see if there are enough people signing up that, in other words, how do you qualify for that Solarize discount?
Have you decided upon an installer, David?
Yes.
Well, you can. It's obviously up to you, but the meeting is coming up so soon that, if you're comfortable with delaying your signing the contract, I guess there's no harm in going to the meeting next Tuesday and just kind of seeing where things go. But you'll have to keep in mind the fact that the way the whole process works, it's a group buy discount. And so there's the proposals will have to be given out to folks. People have to make decisions. And so the whole process takes about a month before one knows how much the discount is.
Thank you. I think that answers my question. I don't know if I want to put it off that long. So I think I'll probably just go ahead and jump in tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Have you gotten some other quotes, Dave, and you've compared them and made sure that you're comfortable with the dollars per watt that you're getting? That's reasonable?
Yes. I've got 3 bids, one from St. John's, one from Lansing, and one from Perry. From Perry and Lansing but the one in St. John's was above the other 2 quotes.
Okay. Someone else wanted to make a quick comment?
John, I just wanted to ask if you're still raising money for your legislative and sort of, political actions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Marcia, just send a check to Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, or send it to, just send me an email and I'll send you the information.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, as always. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody. We've gone 6 minutes overboard. I hope this has been interesting. We will have these meetings more regularly. Maybe we'll try and do one once a month. I'll work with John Sarver to figure out the next time we'll have one of these meetings. And if you have any topics for the agenda, feel free to make suggestions and send them to me. And I really appreciate everyone's time, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening. And thanks a lot for all your support for